Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's Allan Labucan from the Allan Reports. Generally, I have CEOs on the show and of junior mining companies that are going to talk about their projects, or newsletter writers that talk about their stocks. But today I have a special guest in Steve Todoruk. Steve is an investment executive with Sprott International, or Sprott Resource Investments, I guess is the official name. And what makes Steve unique is he's also a geologist. And I've known some geologists that have been turned into brokers, but I don't know of any that had as long of a career in exploration. So Steve wears a couple of hats there that I think are very helpful for his clients. And in addition to that, Steve is the current recipient of the Murray Pezim Award. He's the recipient of the 2019 Murray Pezim Award for his perseverance and commitment to financing high-quality, early-stage exploration projects that have led to numerous significant metal discoveries. Steve has participated or arranged financings that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars that has allowed many exploration companies to advance their projects to the next stage. There you go, Steve. There's your introduction, man.
Big one to live up to. Thanks, Allan, for having me.
Well, I think what we'll get right into is I want, before we close at the end, I wanted to get your sort of, how you feel about the price of gold and the state of the junior market. But let's get right into some stocks, Steve, because that's what people like to hear about. And let's start with one of the companies that is one of your picks, and it's kind of one of my favorite picks. It's MAG Silver. MAG's going to be not too long from now one of the lowest cost producers of silver in the world. And you've been on them for a long time. Why don't you talk a little bit about MAG Silver for us?
Okay, I'll give some comments there, Allan. I guess I've got to qualify something here. Being a licensed stockbroker in the United States, I'm not allowed to throw out names. I'm supposed to know what stocks are suitable for which clients, type of thing. So I'll probably generalize, and I might have to say, if you keep bringing up names, that I can't mention anything about it.
Sure.
But
well,
I think
I'm going to stick to the ones that I think you will be safe with. And of course, these are not buy or sell recommendations there. We're just talking about projects following.
Yeah. I think MAG Silver is pretty well a household name in the junior mining sector. I think they're about to, grow up and be one of the big boys, one of the producers here within a couple of months, which, makes them pretty special. When I went to university studying geology, we actually learned about the big silver mines right next door that Fresnillo has operated for about 400 years. And one day in 2005, MAG Silver came into our office in Carlsbad, California here, and they wanted to tell us their story about them going public and whatnot. And when they got up and left, I started talking to my clients saying, watch this story. If these guys ever drill one hole that's 16 feet of 16 ounces per ton silver, buy lots of it. And I actually had some clients that actually bought it right then at 50 cents a share, and they still own it.
Wow.
They didn't start drilling and make the discovery drill hole until I think it was January 2016, and it was pretty well bang on what I was looking for. And as you mentioned, it's gone on to be one of the premier silver stocks. Especially, it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens when they go into production here. Some of the funds that aren't allowed to buy junior stocks are probably going to start buying MAG Silver at that point, because they are a producer and they do generate cash flow. I'm also going to be quite interested to see if investors sell some of their other silver miners to put it into MAG Silver once they become that pure rich silver miner type of thing. So it's going to be pretty interesting, but it also touch on how long it takes to go from the time a company drills that first good discovery drill hole until when a mine becomes a production. That's 14 years I've been waiting.
Wow. Well, it was a good one for you to wait for, Steve. I think it's why I know this area so well is I live down in the state of Zacatecas. I'm probably about I don't know, 50 miles from Fresnillo.
Mhm.
And there is, the thing that blows me away is how much of this area is still underexplored, and there's road access and power access to everything that I look at down here.
Mhm.
So, you know, those are the things, not only the high grade, but the quality workforce and the infrastructure really helps to bring your costs down, which, you know, I like those low cost producers.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow any.
Touching on a similar subject that you're talking about, there's a little Australian junior just recently has announced a brand new palladium rich discovery. I'm not going to name the company, but they made this discovery about 40 kilometers out of Perth, the mining hub of Western Australia. All the miners flying in out of Perth to go up to the iron ore mines, the gold mines, and it's the first ever palladium discovery in all of Australia, and it's only 40 kilometers out of downtown Perth.
Wow.
You could
So
imagine
super
there's
low
probably been a
cost.
fair number of geologists that have had a picnic on their property.
Well, I think that's the same story you can say for Mag Silver.
Yeah.
Geologists walked over that property for 400 years, and you know, and then they drilled a little deeper and they found some blind veins, and the rest is history. And soon they're going to be a cash flow positive, money making machine, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another one that I have here is I don't know if you feel comfortable making any comments on Premier Gold. I've followed them for years. Ewan Downey is kind of building that company the old-fashioned way, you know, through the drill bit, buying good assets, and then trying to enhance them with drilling. Can you make some comments on Premier for us?
Yeah, I know the company. I've followed them, you know, fairly closely over the years, and I've been out to look at a number of Ewan's properties. I think he tells a story. He's trying to build another Agnico Eagle. There's a lot of moving parts, and I think that kind of confuses the market or investors on how to value all the different pieces. You've got, you know, some mines, got some, you know, big developmental stage projects, early stage drilling, a little more advanced drilling where they've actually got their teeth into it and drilled some holes. So it's I almost can't think of another company like Premier in the whole sector. So.
But in the old days, this is how juniors turned into majors or new producers.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. That's like I said, he's trying to, you know, do what Agnico Eagle did.
See, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
another
Ewan
one.
loves to drill.
What's that?
Ewan loves to drill, which I like. I like companies drilling because that's, you know, my niche is discovery plays like a Mag Silver. You know, I'm looking for that first good drill hole, so I need everybody out drilling. You can't predict who's going to make that next big discovery, but the more companies that are drilling, you know, offer up the opportunity for that new discovery, which is the most cherished thing to invest in this whole space.
Well, and I think also, Steve, that it's the most important part of the space right now. I mean, I've been watching all my career, the head grades of mines going down, the discovery grades going down, not enough new discoveries to replace what's being mined. And, you know, there's just not a lot of great new discoveries. We need more of them. And so Ewan's trying to do that, and I like that as well.
That all points to a higher gold price or copper price or silver price. You know, there's still lots of deposits to find out there, but they're getting deeper and deeper. And the only way we're going to find them is continuously improving geophysics, being able to see deeper and deeper. And then the companies have to be cashed up to be able to drill those deep holes.
And a shareholder base that wants to give you the time to do it right and look for those deeper discoveries, because you might be, you know, a few hints with the drill rig before you blast into the guts of the system.
Yeah, what we're not really hearing a lot of yet in North America is what's taking place in Australia. When oil was $100 a barrel, the Australian dollar was pretty well at par with the U.S. and Canadian dollars type of thing. Oil is an integral part of their economy type of thing. So when oil dropped from $100 down to $27, the Australian dollar instantly got a lot weaker, fell down to about 60 cents to $1 US type of thing. And that was an instant godsend for the gold mining companies. Coincidentally, we had a couple of new mid-tier gold mining companies just starting out in Northern Star and Evolution. When the big companies down there, we were in the bear market, and I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was Barrick, Newmont, or Goldfields. They were selling some of their mines that were non-core assets, but they were instant big mining opportunities for Northern Star and Evolution. And they grew into mid-tier miners type of thing, and they instantly reaped that extra profit from the weak Australian dollar. Pay all your costs in Australian dollars and sell your gold in US dollar. They're making an instant extra 30 to 40% type of thing. So they were able to pay down their debt really quickly, generating strong free cash flow. So investors in Australia that were buying those companies and other Australian producers, they were watching their share price go up. And this is 2015, I think, 2014. So those investors that are buying those bigger companies are watching their share price go up. They're making profit. They had more confidence to start going down the ladder financing junior companies. So the Australians are like 4 years ahead of the North Americans in that sense. The Australian miners have mostly hit all-time highs fairly recently, or they're trading right there now. Whereas in North America, Newmont got up to maybe $65 a while ago, and their all-time high was back around 2011, and I think it's $76. Yeah. So the North Americans still aren't there, i.e. the investors in the North American miners, you know, they're still getting in. The generalists are starting to move in and whatnot. We're definitely seeing more financings today, like every day. How many private placements are you reading about? The money's coming out now. Yeah. So the companies are getting cashed out.
Multi-millions, $10, $20 million
yep. deals. But the Australian juniors have had, 2, 3, 4 years to go out and do those preliminary surveys, starting to identify drill targets. Now they're drilling, and I'm involved in 2 gold discoveries, another discovery out there. Rio Tinto's made a big discovery called Waiinu in Western Australia. BHP's made a new Olympic Dam discovery. There might be one other one type of thing, but all of a sudden we're seeing the benefit or the rewards of those previous 3 to 4 years of exploration. And North America isn't quite there yet.
I know you follow Australia a lot for years, since you and I first met back in the 1990s. I think late 90s you started noticing some of the Australian plays. So that's another thing that you I think offer that most brokers don't, is that you follow the Australians really closely.
We can chalk that up to my sister living down there for about 35 years, and I go down to visit her every 2 to 3 years. So I've got, it's almost my next to Canada. Yeah. Australia, you'd say, is my third home. So I'm very comfortable with the time change. That doesn't bother me at all type of thing. So I actually had my clients sell their North American producers and buy the Australian miners when we were still in the bear market. And
I've got one actually we're going to wrap up on. The last stock to talk about is one of the Australians. So we'll get more into that Australians. But another stock that you follow closely is the Wesdome gold mines. This one has a very big following. And how are you feeling? What's the story on that one, Steve?
Again, my take, not my recommendation. My take is, again, it's kind of like a Mag Silver. It's one of the top success stories where we've seen a smaller company make a significant discovery. Share price has gone up dramatically, probably almost 500% from when they drilled the first couple of holes into the Skeena deep zone. At this point, the neat thing about that story, which is very rare, is that, you get a Mag Silver type of thing, a junior that makes a discovery, but that's all they have. Wesdome, you get that discovery at Skeena Deep, but you also get the mining company part of the story with cash flow. And you've been able to see them sort of bootstrap all the drilling and starting to build a new mine at Skeena, reopening it, refurbishing equipment and whatnot, without raising a dime in a private placement. They've used their cash flow from their producing mines. So that's an extremely rare type of story in a smallish company. Where do they go from here? The game plan is to reopen Skeena. That probably more than doubles their production from 100,000 ounces to over 200,000. And do they get taken over? They're getting to be pretty expensive. Or do they, like we were alluding to earlier, do they start to grow into the next big gold miner, after they put Skeena back into production, do they then move on and, make an acquisition to grow their
Kind of
production?
need that in the space, don't we, Steve? Years ago, there used to be a lot more in that middle tier section that
Yeah.
been just decimated over the last bull market in 2001 to 2000.
Yeah, there's very little left type of thing. So it'd be nice if they could survive and keep growing, because it gives, it's appealing to a certain type of investor. Some will just want to wave goodbye. It's been such a good success story, but I think most people agree that it's one of the best success stories out there.
Yeah, SilverCrest is another one you've had good success with down here in Mexico. Again, not a recommendation, but to buy or sell. But tell us what you think of this one, Steve.
Well, coincidentally, Wesdome and SilverCrest announced their new discoveries, their discovery announcements, almost a month, maybe 2 months apart back, and I think it was late 2016. So
Yeah.
it's almost been a neck and neck race, to the finish line, share price wise and whatnot. So it's again, those are probably the three best success stories in the junior mining sector: Meg Silver, SilverCrest, and Wesdome. It's great to see those success stories. We all want to see good solid wins where everybody wins: investors, the mining company. It's a happy ending or happy closing for everybody involved.
For sure, those two have a very similar stock chart as well.
Identical.
Yeah, it looks identical. One closer to your old home in BC is Skeena Resources. I think they made the initial discoveries before you were even in the mining business, and now they're refurbishing that. Is that one you can comment on, Steve?
Well, I know the story, and it starts, when I was actually working in the field as a geologist in the late 1980s up in the Iskut River, then the Eskay Creek area. And Murray Pesum, alluding to the award I got, Murray financed one of the two companies involved, Prime Resources, that made the discovery of the Eskay Creek mine, which went on to become the richest gold mine in the world and the 5th largest silver producer. Homestake was the early miner, and then Barrick took over Homestake. So Barrick mined it for a number of years and shut it down, I think in 2007, 2008. It was just too small for Barrick, and it was just sitting on the shelf, and Skeena went to them one day and worked out a deal. Barrick has a back-in right to it right now, and I think Skeena announced that there's about 4 million ounces of good grade gold there. They're going to look at it as an open pit situation this time versus an underground mine that it was before. So, grade is king.
It's a pretty rich cash buyback, isn't it? I think like 3 times their expenses or something like that.
Yeah. Barrick would have to write a check and reimburse Skeena for 3 times whatever they spend. So far, they've spent about $20 million. So Barrick would have to spend 60, but I think Skeena is going to spend something like $40 million this year. So they'll spend 60 million on it. So
wow.
We'll see what happens, whether Barrick backs in as a partner or they can redo their deal. Time will tell, but it's hard to find. I think that's too small a deposit for Barrick. 4 million ounces, especially only 50%, but 4 million ounces is a big deposit for a lot of the gold miners out there. So finding big high-grade deposits in low-risk countries are very rare today.
Is there some sort of a trigger to that, like they got to put up or get lost kind of situation?
I think it's in December this year sometime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something people can watch for too. Could be some action around that time. The final one I wanted to get back to was you're watching these things in Australia. Greatland Gold has just been a kind of gone vertical in the last, let's say, years, or not even 4 or 5 months, 6 months, with their great discovery. What can you tell us about that one, Steve?
Well, I've never seen a major mining company act like Newcrest is in that joint venture. From the little I know about the story, again, this is not a recommendation. Just from what I read when I'm reading Newcrest talking about it and listen to their CEO talk about it. I've never seen the head of a big mining company talk so openly about the plans, if this is going to be a mine, and how aggressive they are. They're somewhat driven by the fact that only 20 miles away they've got an old mine that's been around for 40 years and it's on its last legs. So they either got to shut that down or find something new right in their backyard. So from what Newcrest is saying, this deposit fits the bill. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, I think having talked about some of these companies, Steve, you kind of give people some insight into how you look at the stocks you look for and the service you provide to your clients. Before I let you go, you've been very generous with your time here, Steve. Why don't you give me a quick riff on what you think about the price of gold? It's been a pretty good year over the last 52 weeks. It's been as low as 1250, and it's kind of done this and gone all the way up to 1750. What are your feelings on gold these days?
Well, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, before all the turmoil in the world that we're living in today, I would have said, when I first accepted Rick Rule's job to move down here in 2003, gold was $425 an ounce. Since then, it's been to 1900. It's been around 1200, the last couple of years type of thing. And I said, for all those reasons, whatever they are, gold's probably going to keep trending higher type of thing. Now you add in what's happening today, and I just can't see how it's not going to go higher. I'm not in the business of predicting where it is. I'm extremely happy with the $1,700 gold price, for what I do, trying to find, good juniors to invest in. It starts with the miners, and the gold miners are making very good profits at this price. That generally trickles down to the juniors being able to raise money and go out and drill. So
yeah,
I think it's going higher, but I'm happy with it here.
It certainly looks like a perfect storm to me. You've got, this stimulus forever. Interest rates can't really go anywhere. All these countries are fighting to get to zero on their dollars. It's shaping up pretty nicely. You have touched a little bit on the final topic I wanted to ask you about, Steve. The state of the junior market. I think it's the most important segment of the sector. What do you think about the state of the juniors these days?
It's getting better. We're still coming out of a bear market that was the worst I've seen in 40 years. It was horrific.
Even worse than the late 90s?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It just starts with the world's population. Every day we wake up, we need metals. And the juniors play a big role in that. The miners are, for the most part, busy mining. They do some exploration, but the role of the juniors is to explore, looking for new deposits of all commodities. So I can't see how there will not be a junior mining sector. We don't need as many companies as we do. There's a lot of questionable companies out there. We want, when investors are writing checks and buying stocks, we want that money going in the ground as much as possible. And those are the companies you want to try.
Best litmus of is the truth machine. Are they putting holes in the ground? Are they looking for something? Or are they paying wages and have a blown out share?
Yeah. And for a guy like me, that's pretty easy to identify. For most people, it's impossible. I've been reviewing a lot of investors' portfolios the last couple of months. I probably looked at over 100 and commenting on them for investors, and it's shockingly horrific what most investors are investing in. I literally seen Meg, Silver, Wesdome, and SilverCrest in less than 5 of 100 portfolios. That's scary. My most common comment was, don't know the company, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, if you don't know them, it means they're not making news. They're sort of just sleepy little companies. I sort of feel the same way. I'm always looking for news, and if I don't know a company, it's because they're not making any news.
Yep. And if any of your listeners would like me to go over and give comments on their stocks, feel free to email them to me, and I'll do my best to give you some feedback.
And the best email for them to send it to, Steve?
Todoruk@sprottglobal.com.
And if they want to give you a call, do you mind giving out your number?
Yep, 1-800-477-7853. And it'll prompt you to type in my first name, and then you'll come through to me working at home.
Perfect. Steve, thank you very much for your time today. You know, we've known each other for a lot of years, and one of the things that there's two things that I always admired about the work you do, Steve. One is that you used to look through every news release in Stockwatch every day. I remember that, and I also remember bumping shoulders with you at these various different conferences. I don't know a lot of guys that I saw at all the conferences looking at the drill core, but over the years we bumped into each other a lot at those shows, and I think that makes you very unique in the space for brokers with your background in geology. So you know, a good portion of my audience is in the U.S., and if they need to talk to you, I encourage them to do that.
No, thanks, Al.
Good. On that note, I'm going to close the show and thank everybody for spending the time with us. And remember that this show is for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework and speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. There you go, Steve. We're all done.
Okay.